Hi everyone, Amaryllis with Ace Travels here again. And today I am excited to bring to you Kerry Malloy, who is the program coordinator for Trama Textiles. So if you never heard of Trama Textiles, let me share a little bit of information and then she's going to get into the good stuff. Trama Textiles is a cooperative of female Mayan backstrap loom weavers across Guatemala. They work directly with 100 women from 17 weaving communities across 5 regions in the Western Highlands. And they also collaborate with various individual weavers and artisans across the country who play a crucial role in Trama success. Their mission is to create work for fair wages for the women of Guatemala, and to support the families and communities while also preserving and developing their cultural traditions by maintaining their textile arts and their histories. They encourage travelers to get involved either by attending their weaving school while traveling in Guatemala, where they offer different weaving courses. Some are an hour, some are 5 hours. You have your choice, or by taking part in a virtual tours that they offer. And then finally, also by volunteering and helping Trama Textile with skills in business development, sales management, communications, social media, and other areas as well. So without further ado, I am going to say, hi, Kerry. Thank you for being here. I so appreciate your time.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about where Trama Textiles is located, and just a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised, and if you're not from Guatemala, how did you end up there?
Sure. So Trama Textiles, its main office is in Quetzaltenango, which is the second largest city in Guatemala. It's in the Western Highlands. But as you mentioned, we work with weavers all over the Western Highlands. So we represent groups from Quiche, Sololá, from Huehuetenango, from the lake, many different areas, which is what really makes Trama Textiles really special because Guatemala has a very large Mayan population, and amongst the Mayan population, there are many different indigenous groups. So every indigenous group has its own language, it has its own customs, and also its own weaving styles. So that's part of what Trama Textiles is about, is bringing all these women together so they can create products together and they can share and preserve these these customs that they have. And I am not from Guatemala. I am from New York originally. I grew up on Long Island, and I moved here in 2021 to help with managing the business and managing the volunteer program, as well as all the tourism activities. So all the women in the cooperative, they all are Indigenous women. They all focus on the weaving part of the cooperative. So I help manage all of the other stuff. So all the international business, and connecting them using my English with the international community as well.
Okay. And so you mentioned that because there are very varying indigenous groups and they all speak their own dialects or language, right? Actually, language, I would say, is more appropriate. Then is it safe to assume that the connecting language is probably Spanish for all of them, or do they all speak Spanish too?
So the connecting language is Spanish. They don't all speak Spanish. About 30% of our weavers can't speak any Spanish at all. But the way we work through that is each weaving group has one representative who does speak Spanish and write and read in Spanish, and they can bridge that gap for us. Also, the president and vice president of the cooperative are both Indigenous women themselves. One speaks Cachiquel and one speaks Mom. So they also help bridge that gap because those are quite large languages that are spoken around Guatemala. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. That is incredible. I think I mentioned to you, I had the opportunity to live in Madagascar. And one of the things that I did while I was living there was work with women-led groups that do I was specifically working with a women's embroidery group, so kind of similar in the same vein, and I helped them with a lot of like business development, just in terms of like putting together grants and helping them to be able to apply for, microfinancing or grant development, like that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And it was great just being able to kind of share your knowledge with them, and
Right.
watching their business be able to excel or to grow as a result of, the work that you do with them. So thank you for doing that. That's amazing.
Of course. I love it.
um, so what, so I'm curious, how did this opportunity in Guatemala come about, and what made you decide I want to do this?
Hmm. Right. Well, like we were discussing previously, we both did Peace Corps, and I did Peace Corps in Tanzania, which I loved my experience there. And I was doing similar work, working with women's groups, small women's groups, and I really love the aspects of kind of finding where I can help them and where I can learn from them. And I think that there's a lot of preconceived notions that we have about people in different cultures and people of different economic situations. So it was very eye-opening for me to realize how much I could learn, and also like what skills that I could bring to the table. So I think I found that I really enjoyed working in business, and I worked bringing that knowledge to the women. So
Yeah.
yeah, I found this opportunity to come here to Guatemala to do very similar work, but for a much larger cooperative that was already thriving. And yeah, it's been really fantastic. It's like you mentioned, it's just very interesting to be able to use your skills to be able to uplift women and see like where they can teach you, and where how you can work together, especially across like language barriers. I have learned Spanish here, but starting out I did not know a lot of Spanish, so working through that. But yeah, and that's why we have a volunteer program, as you mentioned, and it's similarly focused. Although I am an employee here, I do feel like volunteers get to have just the same experience that I do get
Yeah.
that I'm having here, since it's just me and like I mentioned, the president and vice president, we need help in pretty much every area. And you get to work directly with the weavers, you learn Spanish. And I think people can really learn a lot from volunteering with us. Mhm.
That's awesome. And I think it's important to know, like you just said, that you when you do this, you're kind of like in service to other,
Mhm.
to these women who live in this country, and are setting themselves up for a better life, right?
Mhm.
And I think people think, oh, whether you're volunteering or employing, like, or an employee, like, oh, they're getting so much from you. And in actuality, what ends up happening is you, as the employer, the volunteer, gets so much more from them, just in terms of like life perspectives. And it's just, you get this like enriching feeling like you're actually contributing to the world in some way, shape, or form, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly. And I think it puts into perspective, like people can come with experience in finances or social media, but once you have to work with people who don't maybe speak your language or don't know how to use technology or aren't aware of some of the things you're aware of, I think it really sparks creativity, and you have to think outside the box. Like we have a lot of volunteers with background in textiles, and they went to school for it. They know how to do graphic design like it's nobody's business. But then they come and they have to work with women who only in the last couple of years even learned like how to measure with the metric system. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, so it is like a real challenge. But I think it's beautiful, and it is like when it comes to fashion, it comes to textiles, I think that it's really good to harken back to like how fashion originally started, which was people creating things just based off of like their feelings and what they were seeing in the environment, and then just like learning a skill and building off of that, not necessarily like using graphic design or technology,
Right.
but like just doing what their moms taught them.
Yeah,
So
like their natural born talent, right? Like just
yeah.
what they know, what they've learned, or their natural born talent.
Yeah.
So for ladies or for women who want to be part of Trama Textiles, is there a criteria? Is there a process? How does that work?
So yeah, so if you do want to volunteer with us, you can contact us through our email, or also our website also has our email. We're traumatextiles.org. And yeah, you can just write to us, and depending on how much room we have available, we take like 6 to 7 volunteers at a time. And then the process is pretty informal. Go back and forth with a few emails and video calls to find out what type of skills that the volunteer has and what they can contribute to us. And then, and we are accepting virtual volunteers as well. And yeah, and then we go from there. But yeah, just reach out and contact us by email, and we can get started. But
and then in terms of like the actual women, the Guatemalan women who want to be part of the cooperative, how did they become a part of that?
So our cooperative, it's still mainly the women that started about 30 years ago, and their daughters and granddaughters that joined the cooperative. But we are accepting new groups at the moment. So if a new group of weavers wants to be involved, usually they have to be invited in by current members of the cooperative. So we typically ask that that 2 members come and bring forth a new member that wants to join, and then we can invite them in through a process of vetting the weavers. Or if a completely new group wants to join, then there's another process for that. But it typically has to do with the women voting in the cooperative to see and seeing if they get enough votes to be able to enter.
Okay. All right. And then can you give the viewers like an example of some of the, if you're traveling through Guatemala and you decide I want to do one of the classes, like I want to learn this skill, what are some of the classes that are available to them?
Yeah. So if you love being creative, you can learn backstrap loom weaving, which I think is an incredible opportunity, because like we're talking about, they only practice that here in Guatemala and a little bit in Mexico. So it dates back all the way to the time of the Mayans, 3,000 years ago. It's a very special art, but you can learn how to do it. I made myself my own scarf that I love wearing all the time, and I love knowing that I did it myself. So yeah, we definitely encourage people to come to the weaving school. You can stop by anytime. We're open 5 days during the week. And yeah, they can choose the project they want to do. You can make your own scarf. You can make a table runner. You can even practice some basic embroidery. Classes mainly take between like 8 to 10 hours for like something like a scarf. And it can take up to 20 hours for something complicated like an embroidered table runner. But you can break that up over as many days as you want. You can come 1 hour a day, you can come 5 hours, 2 days, whatever works best for your schedule. It can be really, really fun, peaceful activity to do. You get to learn, they teach you the 3 processes of backstrap loom weaving. You get to choose your own colors. You get to choose design your own design. And then you get to weave it and hang out with the weavers and speak Spanish if you want.
And then all of those funds, the great part about all of that is that those funds actually go to help these women in their communities. So, it's not just like, I don't want to say, I mean, everybody's in business for a reason, right? But it's not just going into some random person's pocket, like it's actually helping a community. Now, how does it work with the virtual tours? So if you want to do a virtual tour from the comfort of your own home, are there materials you need to buy beforehand? How does that work?
So we do virtual demonstrations, which it's mainly you connect with us over virtual video like this. I'll serve as your translator, or a volunteer will serve as your translator, and we'll walk you through the steps of backstrap loom weaving. It takes about 45 minutes to go through the process. You don't need any materials at home. You just watch, you ask questions. You just get to, hear the language as well if you're interested in like hearing some Spanish. Yeah, we bring you through all the different steps, and then we show you some of the products that we have that are made through this process. If you do want to learn backstrap loom weaving, but you want to do it at the comfort of your own home, we also sell backstrap loom weaving, do it at your home weaving kits on our website. So you can buy one on the website, and we send you tutorial videos, and you can completely weave in the comfort of your own home. So yeah, so both are great options if you can't come, but you still want to participate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I just wasn't sure if it was like that more instructional or actually hands-on, you're doing it while they're teaching you. But I mean, either way, I think it would be incredible just to kind of see that process. And we should talk, because I want to do one of those virtual tours and invite guests in to come and watch them as well. So we should definitely talk about that.
Please
do. We'll do that separately.
Okay.
So what do you hope that like guests or travelers who come and take the courses or meet the ladies really kind of like get the experience? What do you hope to take away from all of this when they leave and they go back home? Like what is your one wish?
Mhm. I hope that they take back a friendship with our weavers. I think that the women that work here, they're all really, really amazing, strong women. And I think what I love seeing is when people are weaving, or we also have a homestay, so sometimes people stay with the weavers as well. I love seeing when I can tell that they're getting comfortable, they're getting past the language barriers, and they're actually getting to hear the stories of these women.
Mhm.
Most of these women have unfortunately lost a lot through the Civil War and the genocide that happened 30 years ago. But they're all extremely resilient. But hearing the stories of what they've gone through and then how they've been able to overcome it, and how now they're artisans, and they know that their products are all over the world, and it makes them very proud. So I think like having an authentic experience where you're truly connecting with indigenous people in a culture where you're not overstepping your boundaries, you're meeting them like where they are. Mhm.
Yeah, that's incredible. Um, so tell me a little bit about if someone was to want to go to Guatemala, right? And they said to you, give me one reason why I should go to Guatemala. Like what would you share? What would be your one reason?
Mhm. I would say I think it is a truly unique country. I mean, everything from what we're saying, where you really can't connect with indigenous people in a culturally appropriate way in a lot of parts of this world anymore. So getting to come to a country that 40% of the population is still indigenous Mayan, seeing the ruins, as you mentioned, you've seen yourself, that's an incredible opportunity to see ruins from a culture that, was one of the foundational cultures of Mesoamerica. And I think the nature as well, the beautiful
Yeah.
nature, the mountains, there's beaches, there's rivers, there's waterfalls. So it's like, I think it's a more authentic version of like Costa Rica or something, which something everybody thinks, let's go to Costa Rica, beautiful country. But I think here you get all of that nature and all of that beauty while also like seeing local culture a bit more closely.
Yes. I 100% agree with you, by the way, because I think one thing that I think Costa Rica has done really well in comparison to like a Guatemala is their the advertising of their tourism, right? So
Mhm.
people have this idea in their mind of, and not to say my mom lives in Costa Rica and it's a beautiful country. I go every year. So I'm not taking anything away from them, but I do agree with you 1000% that in Guatemala you're going to get more access, a more immersive cultural experience than I think you do in Costa Rica.
Mhm.
There's no fault of Costa Ricans. I think it's just you find a lot more expats in Costa Rica. It's just you're not getting their access to their indigenous culture is just a little harder in Costa Rica because it's not as prominent. Whereas, having been to Guatemala, like you at every turn you're coming across like
Mhm.
you're immersed in that culture. There is no way around it.
Right,
you
right.
know
And
so
they take pride in it as well. Like I see the
absolutely.
advertisements they do here are a lot more like, come to this specific part of the country to experience this one festival that happens only here. Like they're
Yes.
a bit more focused on like let us show you why we're different, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love. And I think another country that's starting to do more of that too is like Panama, like where you get to go and really I was just in Panama last year and I got to spend a day with the Embera indigenous tribe
Mhm.
there, and they were so welcoming, and they want you to learn about their culture and their
Mhm.
traditions and why they do things the way that they do and how they're trying to preserve all of that.
Mhm.
And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So that's
That's great to
awesome.
hear because I'm gonna go to Panama very soon. So now
Yes.
I'm getting even
Well,
more excited.
you let me know. I can connect you with some great guides there and some things for
Perfect.
you to see and do while you're there. You should definitely, if you can, visit the indigenous tribes there,
Mhm.
because
Okay.
they're incredible. And they have, they much like, I don't think they have as many as Guatemala has, but they definitely, they have like 7, I want to say 8 or 9 indigenous tribes across the different parts of the country. So definitely something you'll love it. Panama's beautiful.
Great.
Um, so tell me a little bit about, what do you love the most about what you do for Trama Textiles?
It's a good question. I think I love that. I think I am learning so much from this role. So I think what I love is feeling like every day I come in and there are going to be a lot of problems, but that's the best part, is knowing, like, I think when and you like a job when you're excited for the challenges and the problems, and that solving them is like what makes it interesting. If the challenges are the worst part, then I think then you're never going to actually enjoy it. Like you want to feel like you're kind of always fighting to make things better, and to find a way to make things work better. And I think this is the type of job where working across cultures, there's plenty of opportunities for things to go wrong, and things get lost in translation, and like lack of technology being used in the organization sometimes can feel like a burden. But I think it also like teaches me so much about like how we don't need that, and we can still get by and run a beautiful business. And
Yeah,
and
there was a time in our lives where we didn't have the
yeah,
technology that we have today, and we managed, right? Like,
yeah. Absolutely. I
yeah.
know. And also I really love the president and vice president here at Trama Textiles. Their homes are actually like right here in the same spot. So they'll always be cooking and hanging out with their kids, and all their grandkids will be running around. So it's like you get to like work with like people and like know them so intimately, because you see their families. And that's what I think volunteers and tourists love about coming here, is like you kind of like spend your day living with this family and like seeing what they do day to day. And it's cool, it's heartwarming. People
Awesome.
don't connect in that way anymore. So
No, I think, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel, for me, like when I was in Madagascar and I was doing a lot of the work with the Embroidery Association, you were mentioning how you're going to come across problems and you have to kind of like find creative solutions and figure them out. One of the things that I loved was that despite whatever the problem was, it never having, I went from two very, and much like yourself, like very different ends of the spectrum, right? I went from New York City to Madagascar. It was like complete opposites, right? And regardless of whatever problems arose, like it never ever, to me, at any point in time, felt like whenever I had problems in New York, where it was like the most daunting feeling in the world. Like in this situation, okay, we have an issue, we need to figure out how to overcome it, but nobody is like, oh my God, you got to fix this today, or it has to get done. Like, it was just,
yeah.
you actually welcomed problems, because you were like, okay, well, let's just figure this out and we'll find it. I don't know, it moved at a slower pace, so it didn't feel so daunting. Do you find that?
I do. I definitely find that. I think that the problems here, like you're saying, no offense to New Yorkers, that like and to that type of living, but sometimes I feel the problems here are slightly more real. Like you're facing something that maybe it actually does have a little bit more consequence than the thing you'd freak out at home, but maybe that's like what sobers you a bit, and you're like, okay, I have to like stay calm, and I have to actually deal with this in a smart way, because it actually matters. And I think maybe in the States, like we get so caught up in problems, and then we're like, wait, this doesn't actually matter, and maybe
I
that's
call
like
them
the brain
I
run and run and run. And run.
call them
Yeah,
first world problems.
yeah, 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 not to.
I say that because a lot of times what we think are really problems are not really problems. It
Mhm.
might be an inconvenience to you, right? And I don't like to minimize anybody's problems, because everybody's perspective is a little different. But when your problems have to do more with survival and your
Mhm.
basic necessities, like you said, that's where you're like, these are a little bit more dire. Like they require a little bit more, but
Yeah.
even still, it doesn't feel as daunting, because there's not this superficial, like emergency
Mhm.
needs to be done today kind of feel to it. Like,
Yeah, you don't
yeah,
have to like throw more fuel on the fire. There's enough fuel there, like you're freaking out is not going to help anybody. So, yeah. My Spanish teacher here, she always says like this is a country of adrenaline because everything you do from like the bus rides to even their actual problems you have to deal with every day, it's like just you're always like everything actually matters in a way. Everything
yeah.
like kind of kicks up your adrenaline.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it all has some significance there.
yeah,
It's not like a problem that in 5 years you're going to completely forget about and be like, I can't believe I was worried about that.
yeah,
Like, no, there's real life consequences to them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So because this is I'm a travel advisor and I'm a huge traveler. So I'm assuming that you're a big traveler because you said you're about to go to Panama, you've been to
Mhm,
Tanzania.
mhm.
So are you a big traveler?
I am. I do love traveling, but I also like that kind of living in places. I find, if anything, I think it's funny like living here when I lived in Tanzania for 2 years. When people hear that, they're like, "Wow, like I wish I could travel." And I'm like, "Well, actually, I lived in one place in one city for 2 years straight. I'd never traveled at all. So I am probably more jealous of your traveling than you actually probably get to move around. So, but I do like that. I think finding a place you like and settling down a bit more. I find that like people think, what's the difference between 6 months and 2 years in a place? But I think there's a large difference. And I think
Yeah.
as time goes on, every couple of months, your perspective is just totally evolving. And you probably know that through Madagascar as well. By the end of the 2 years, you're like, yep, I needed to be here for 2 years to know what I know now. Like I wouldn't have known this in 6 months.
I
Mhm.
tell people all the time, I'm like, when you move to another country, right? Because this happened to me in Madagascar, it happened to me when I moved to Mexico. Um, it's like a roller coaster. You could be like, one day you wake up and you are on a high and you're like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm in a National Geographic magazine, you know? That's the
Yeah.
best way to describe it for me,
Mhm.
anyways. And then other days you hit this low and you're like, what did I do? Like, I left the comforts of my home, my family, my friends. And it's not because of any one thing that's happened or you're not happy or you're not specifically like happy in that predicament or that situation. It's just this lull that you're going through,
Yeah.
right? Like, and it's literally a roller coaster. Some days you're up, some days you're down. And it really kind of takes a little while for it to settle out, like to kind of level out. Um, and so I agree with you when you say 6 months compared to 2 years is different. There is a difference because I feel like even at the 6 months, you're still kind of going through that roller coaster.
Yeah.
It hasn't really leveled out yet, you know? And so I try to recommend to my clients when they're traveling. Most of my clients are traveling for very short periods of time in comparison to, what you're doing or what I did.
Mhm.
So even if they're going for 2 weeks, I try to say to them, like, I get it. You want to go see some of the tourist sites. That makes sense, right? But try to do something that's a little out of your comfort zone, something that's going to bring you a little bit closer to that culture. Try different foods, talk to some of the locals, try
Mhm.
to learn a little bit of the language while you're there and use it, right? Like, try to if you make friends with someone who's a local and they invite you to dinner, go. Like, those kind of experiences will always stand out in your mind. And I always like to say that the cultural immersive experiences are the ones that make you storytellers.
Right.
They're the ones that turn you into a storyteller.
Right.
So
Right. I love
yeah.
that. Absolutely. And I feel like some people might ask, like, oh, well, how do I like maybe break that barrier? Like, how do I talk to a local? How do I, get invited to that meal that I want to do? But I think sometimes it's as simple as like just sometimes put your phone away, like put your things away and just like observe around you as you sit in a park. Or like my friend told me a story the other day where he was swinging in a hammock, like right on a beach, and he was just like observing, and all these kids just could tell that he had like I'm open to anything energy. And they came over and they started like swinging him in the hammock. And he said it was like such a funny, little experience, but for him, it meant a lot. He still thinks about it. And I think it was just the fact that he looked open, like he looked open to people to come to talk to him. So like
Yeah.
put that
And
phone
kids
away, just focus on the country. Mhm.
and kids are the actually kids are the best way to get to get into that and be comfortable with that, right? If you're a little intimidated about starting a conversation with another adult that you don't know from a country, kids are the best way to do that, because kids will find a way to communicate with you. Kids have no filter. Like, they'll just like invite you in and ask you questions. And they're just one of the best ways to actually be able to connect with that culture in a way that may help to kind of ease your comfort, you know, a little bit, or ease you into it.
Yeah,
So I
and
think that's the point.
understood. And they're the best teachers of a language, because you're probably on their level at that point.
Exactly.
Very, very well.
Very, very good point. I know when I was in Madagascar, I talked to tons of kids, because I was like, I gotta learn this language. And
Definitely.
sure. So I know you've lived in Tanzania and now Guatemala. What is your favorite destination? You might be like, I'm gonna say Guatemala, because
Oh, that's a hard one. I know. I mean, I love Guatemala. I will say though, my favorite maybe is Zanzibar in Tanzania. It's an island off the coast of Tanzania. Yeah, you probably heard people. It's pretty well known, but oh, that's a beautiful island. And speaking like cultural wise too, like it's like predominantly Muslim. I've just found that very fascinating. Like you hear the mosques, like you hear the mosques in the distance. Like I found it very like culturally fascinating, and also just the beaches are amazing there. So Zanzibar. Yeah.
All right. Well, I've been taking up a lot of your time today, so I want to make sure that I'm respectful of your time, and we're coming up on like the half-hour mark. So I wanted to ask you before we go, how can folks find out more about Trama Textiles if they're interested in either doing the virtual tour, volunteering, or taking a class while they're in Guatemala?
Yes, so you can find us. We have our main website. Like I said, it's tramatextiles.org. You can find us on Instagram at Trama Textiles. We're on Facebook as well. We're on Pinterest, and all under Trama Textiles. And yeah, and if you want to reach out to us, if you go on our website, there's a contact us page with my email, our phone number. Yeah, so I would, the email is coordinator@tramatextiles.org. But like I said, it's on the website. You can look it up there.
Okay, awesome. And I will include all that information in the description of the video down below. So you'll be able to click on any of the links for their social media or their website or Kerry's email. So
yeah. Okay.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing about this wonderful organization. I think it's great that this cooperative was formed and that it's helping the women of Guatemala. I always love when you can kind of take travel and use it as a way to help help communities be able to move forward. I think it's fascinating. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy to speak with you, and it's been really enjoyable. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Click the subscribe button to get notified when we post more videos featuring other cultural tour experiences from around the world and additional travel-related content.